NFC South backup quarterbacks Kyle Allen and Teddy Bridgewater shoot for a fourth consecutive win on Sunday, both straight up and against the spread. We'll let you know whether or not we think it'll be four straight. While two AFC North teams are projected to pull off upsets. We'll let you know the teams and, of course, the analysts who are both claiming each upset win on the OFN Today with Mark Lawrence of Covers.com for this Friday, the 11th of October, 2019 on the Our Football Radio Network, brought to you by ourlads.com, the leaders in online football depth charts, and Covers.com, featuring live scores, stats, and odds, considered the most convenient and entertaining source for sports news and facts with over 45 million visits a year. Mark, my friend, how are you in, well, I was going to say sunny South Florida, but it is raining.
It is raining. It's not sunny, and I'm a little bit bummed out today for personal reasons, and I'll share those with you, that today I had to go renew my driver's license.
Uh-oh.
Which we have to do every 8 years or so. And then I got a look at my photo on the driver's license, and I absolutely wanted to throw up.
You mean you probably haven't looked at yourself since the last photo 8 years ago? You didn't realize how old you got.
Unbelievable. I mean, it's like I'm knocking on Pat Riley's door.
Oh!
You know? But nonetheless, it is what it is, and I'm here. And let's get on to the National Football League card.
All right. Well, I'm actually in a good mood because my baseball team won a playoff series for the first time in 40 years last night, or two nights ago, whenever that was, because I'm still kind of in a fog of unbelievability that my one of my teams is actually is having success in the postseason. That just doesn't happen. I don't know how to feel.
You're talking the Nationals?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was nice. Real nice.
Yeah.
In fact, it was real nice personally to me because I had bet in the game. I played the big dog in the contest as well.
I was surprised that that both Steven Strasburg starts, he was getting about plus 150.
Yep. And, the truth of the matter is he could win the Cy Young.
Yeah.
So how would that be to look back and, let them win the World Series, pop the champagne, and then you can talk about how the World Series champion Cy Young winner was $1.50 dog in a couple of playoffs.
I certainly hope so. All right, Mark, let's talk about the NFL, and we'll go over games, once again, that we agree and disagree on. Now, the first two games are two of the top games of the week, and both of these games are probably also just happen to be the ones that I'm not like 100% or 90% sold on, but I am leaning towards the two teams. So let's first, the one I agree with you on could very well be the game of the week, and that's Houston and Kansas City. Now, the line is 4. You're taking the Chiefs. You're taking the Chiefs. You think they're going to win, but you also think that this is going to be a close enough game with that point spread that Houston is going to cover. Not by much. So I think we're both on the same page here. We both agree in taking Houston and the points, but it doesn't sound like we're overly optimistic.
No, it's difficult to be that because you got Patrick Mahomes off a rare loss.
Yeah.
And you've got the Kansas City Chiefs at home off a home loss. But look in the Playbook newsletter this week, and you'll find that when Kansas City has been at home at Arrowhead, after losing at home at Arrowhead the week before, they're just 2-12 straight up in the very next home football game. So, they don't automatically bounce back, do the Chiefs. And what my position in this game is I think there's trouble in Kansas City, and I think the trouble lies largely with the defense, especially the rush defense, which is absolutely horrific.
Yeah, and Chris Jones is looking like he ain't going to play. Their best defensive player.
There you go. I mean, that doesn't really help matter. That's the reason this line is so short, and it almost gets to the point where the public is going to be all over Kansas City because it looks too cheap, if you will. But, the bottom line to me is I'll fade the public here because they're going to be loading up with both fists on Kansas City here. And, again, it wasn't Patrick Mahomes' fault they lost that football game last week. It's the defense, and that's an Andy Reid trait. If you notice his patterns in the past, he's opened up real well, real strong, got out of the gate in real good fashion. Then he stubs his toe, and then all of a sudden his defense begins to let him down, largely because he doesn't concentrate on the defense. He concentrates on the offense. It's really easy to get enamored with good offenses, and that's what he does with, obviously, Patrick Mahomes in this offense here. But he needs to tend to business defensively. He's gained and outstatted in football games a lot like he's always done in the past. My biggest negative to Houston is that you have Deshaun Watson coming off a career-best football game. And that's like in horse racing analogy, a bounce could be in order here for Deshaun Watson. What goes up usually comes down the very next football game. But the bottom line to me is Houston's playing a really good brand of football right now,
Mm-hmm.
their best of the season, and
Yep.
Kansas City's playing their worst football of the
Yep.
season. I'll take the points with the team that's playing their best.
Yeah, and the other thing that does concern me is Houston has dropped 6 straight covers when they take on winning teams of percentages of 750 or greater. So basically, what that's telling you is when they have to go up against the best of the best, they have a hard time covering those games. So I could see that again that concerns me. And actually, that was before the season began because they did have the cover against the Saints, but that didn't really count because that was the first game of the season. So the Saints weren't 1-0, and we didn't know how good the Saints were going to be. So it's still a perfect 0 for 6 in the last 6. Take what it is. The fact is, it's telling you that this organization over the last several years has had a hard time against the best teams in the NFL.
Unquestionably, and this is a pattern that's developed and it's becoming a recurring pattern. The bottom line here is Deshaun Watson's been terrific in his career, his short career as an underdog. 11 times. He's only lost the point spread 2 times in those games. And in fact, he's a perfect 4-0 as an underdog against teams coming off a loss.
Okay.
I'm gonna ride that trend with Houston in this football game.
Yeah, Chiefs have also dropped 3 straight covers. Let's go to the game we disagree on. That once again, you're a little bit more emphatic. Now, this San Francisco Ram game, it's easy to look at the game for me, knowing how a lot of handicappers would break this down. The first thing that I think everybody would look at is San Francisco off Monday night, Rams extra rest. Here you go. Big win, emotional win, San Francisco, national TV, all that kind of stuff. Rams, disappointing loss on national TV. All right, so you got all that going on. And so I get that. I'm kind of going more with my gut here than I guess trends, stats, that kind of thing. I think there's a confidence issue with this Ram team right now. I don't even know if Gurley's going to play. Matter of fact, if I had to bet if Gurley was going to play, I might bet against him playing. I don't even know if he plays, if he's going to get the ball more than 10 times, which means Goff's going to probably have to throw the ball a lot. I'm not sure that's a good remedy against a very good San Francisco defense. And even though the Niners are banged up right now, they're all banged up on offense. All the defenders are healthy. So I'm just going to stick with the hot, confident team that's going to try and avenge getting beat up by their in-division rivals last year and say, hey, we're here. We're going to show you that Monday night and the season wasn't a fluke, and this game means actually more to us than the game that we just played on Monday night. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the Niners and see if they just can continue to roll at least another week.
I can't blame you for taking that view, Greg, especially when an undefeated football team's feeling awfully good about themselves. My main concern in the contest here is the gap between the Rams having played on Thursday
Yep.
and Frisco coming off a Monday game. When you have that scenario and you're talking about a home favorite that played on a Thursday in a game like this, they're 9-3 against the spread. They've done really well taking advantage of the added time. Also, you look at Super Bowl losers, who we usually like to play against the very next football season here. This is one of the roles that the defending Super Bowl losers actually perform well in.
Okay.
And it's in games when they're off 2 losses exact, not to lose 3 in a row and to begin an extended losing streak.
Okay.
They're 12-4 against the spread in this role, a perfect 7-0 in that same role when they take on a team off a straight up and ATS win. To me, I think there's much more importance for the Rams in this football game here, for the slow start that they've gotten off to, and also to answer the question to San Francisco that, hey, we are the team that was in the Super Bowl last year. You guys were pretenders. You're acting like contenders. We're going to show you who we really are. I'm going to be with the Rams in this football game.
Yeah, for the Rams, their edge is going to no doubt be their front defensive line with Donald and the rest, because that Niners offensive line is missing 2 big, you got your tackles out, McGlinchey and Staley. So their tackle situation isn't all that great. And the receivers, the depth is a little bit banged up. now you could say Garoppolo maybe hasn't played his best football yet, and it would take him a while after a serious injury for him to kind of get into the rhythm, especially with an offensive line that's banged up a little bit. But I still have faith that Garoppolo by the end of the season is going to turn out to be the type of quarterback that the Niners wanted when they signed him. I don't think it goes away that quickly. I think it's just going to take some time, like it normally takes these NFL teams, individual players on any given season, especially ones coming back from injury, to kind of look like they're supposed to look. So I'm not so sure he's going to look good on Sunday. I think there are a lot of people that are critical of Jimmy G, even though they're undefeated. They maybe want some more. I think they should be a little bit more patient.
I would not disagree. I would not disagree with that at all, and it's going to come. We know he's a very talented quarterback, and Bill Belichick probably will rue the day that he traded him away. And that was a little bit of a head scratcher, just given the fact that Tom Brady was getting long in the tooth at the time he did that. And God forbid, one, if he hangs up the spikes, or two, if he gets injured, this New England football team is going to do a complete U-turn. And he'll wish he had Jimmy G around at that point. But I think he's going to end up being everything San Francisco wanted. And I think he's going to end up getting the Niners to the playoffs this year, too. They were one of my plays to make the playoffs, the Niners were. I just think this is a big roadblock for them this particular week.
Yeah, I think they're looking pretty good. It's that defense is the reason why I'm sold that they're a playoff team. And, wow, that just shows you how big a game this is for the Rams. Because with Seattle beating them and Seattle looking like they're for real, they had the big deal, of course, to bring in Clowney. That team is legit. Russell Wilson is a great quarterback. It's hard for three teams in one division to make the playoffs. All of a sudden, you've got a wild, crazy smorgasbord of, or potpourri of teams in the NFC West and the NFC North, maybe even the South, that are all battling it out. It's going to be a wild race to the finish line.
Yeah, unquestionably, it's going to be really, really tantalizing. That's really nice. We're going to be getting into the second half of the season here in a couple of weeks or so, and the separation will begin. But again, I'm going to keep harking on the point that I think the separation for the Rams has to happen this week here.
Yes,
they can't afford to fall. They can't afford to fall behind San Francisco too much at this stage of the season.
By the way, you had mentioned that you thought the Patriots, you've mentioned the last few weeks, that they're, I don't know if you've said fraud or anything like that, but
their schedule's been a fraud.
Schedule has been a fraud.
Yes.
They, again, last night didn't look all that great, but the defense and the special teams and a late touchdown bailed them out of that point spread against a giant team playing a rookie quarterback with the third string running back and probably one legitimate receiver. I mean, I didn't even know how that game was close in the second half.
I don't either. It was a scoop and score that won it for New England. But you know something? That's what happens to bad football teams, and that's what is happening to the opponents that New England's taking on this year, because all of them are bad teams. New England had beaten teams going into that game that were 5-17 combined this year, and 4 of those wins were by Buffalo. So what does that leave you? It leaves you 1-17 for everybody else.
Wow.
And the New York Giants weren't much different than the caliber of teams we're talking about. Just watch and see. You mark my words down. The second half of the football season,
I agree.
What happens in New England when they start playing some teams that can actually play in the National Football League?
Yes, this is not the time to take the Patriots if you're in Vegas to win the Super Bowl, or if you're going to put it online. Wait. Just wait, because that 3-1 line to win the Super Bowl is going to go up. The schedule's too tough. Any talk of being undefeated is absolutely ridiculous. This team is nowhere near as good as some of those other teams the Patriots have had, and that schedule is definitely going to prove ourselves right, and it probably won't be much longer. A few more weeks. Won't happen their next game, but a few more weeks.
I couldn't agree anymore, Greg. Keep my eye on New England here. They will be on my fade list, my watch to fade list in the second half of the season.
All right, let's run through some more games we agree on, and that is Carolina and Tampa Bay. Carolina is a 2-point favorite in London against the Bucs, and this is one of those games where you have the Kyle Allen backup quarterback who hasn't lost yet as a starter this season. That's great news for the Panthers, and they haven't lost since the week 2 loss, the embarrassing loss at the time on national TV to Tampa Bay, the team that they're playing this week. Liked the Saints a lot last week against the Bucs, and they came through. So this is important for Tampa Bay after looking pretty good there for a second, especially with that win over the Rams. This is an opportunity for them to sweep Carolina. It's hard to sweep a good football team in the division, and Panthers are on a roll. They get the revenge factor here as well. I just think they're a better football team. I'm going to go ahead and take Carolina just like you.
I agree with you there as well, and for one simple reason, and for no other reason, the fact that since the inception of the NFL International Series and then playing in London, England, of which there's never been a matchup of two winning teams, which is absolutely ridiculous. The National Football League kind of sends the dregs over there, if you will. And the reason they do that simply is because they don't sell out their stadiums at
Yep.
home, and they can get viewership and sell tickets over there. So that's the reason we didn't ever see a marquee matchup over in London. But the bottom line here also is the fact that there's never been an underdog that has won in England two successive weeks in a row,
Oh.
that has won the money two successive weeks in a row. For that to happen, Tampa would have to be the underdog to do just that this week. I think Carolina's playing a little bit too good right now to be wanting to fade them. And Tampa Bay, I love Bruce Arians. My feeling he should have been hired by the Cleveland Browns as the head coach, but the Browns wanted to go a younger, different direction, and they're end up paying for that right now. But Bruce Arians has basically saved Jameis Winston's job to this point. Now, whether it continues here in London remains to be remains to be seen. But underdogs are still just 9-17 to the spread in games in London. I'm with you. I'm on Carolina in this football game.
By the way, everybody talks about the Raiders' schedule. Well, the Bucs, it ain't much better. The Bucs are in their third straight away from home on Sunday. Then after the bye, they get 2 more road games. So that's a long time between playing a home game. That's I don't know what that was about, but that's got to be tough too. Third straight away from home and having to go to London. So that's a lot of traveling away from home.
Well, the schedule maker probably said, okay, Oakland, if we're going to do this to you, we got to take somebody out of the NFC and do something to that team as well. And that ends up being the Tampa Bay Bucks on the receiving end of the schedule maker this year.
All right, I like it. Now let's go to a game we disagree on. And look, we're going to go right back to it. A couple weeks ago, we disagreed on Kirk Cousins against a winning football team. But you are just, it's Mike Zimmer, and why not? Because Zimmer just always, he comes through most of the time. So why not stick with that formula? But I got to ask you, if they lose this week, the next time they play a winning team, you can't do it, right? I mean, you're not going to go back to Minnesota. I mean, Kirk Cousins, you can't. This has got to be the last straw for you with Kirk Cousins against a winning team. Has to be.
Well, it's Mike Zimmer with an asterisk here, okay? And it's him outside the division. As a home favorite outside the division, Mike Zimmer, 22 times he's played, he's won 20 games straight up.
That's all?
He's won 20 of the 22 games straight up, okay?
Yeah, that's all.
That's all. He's lost to the spread all of two times.
As well. Yeah, that's crazy. Yes. Nuts.
But the other side of the equation is this. Minnesota resides still in what we keep calling the black and blue division in the NFC North. They are trailing both Detroit and Green Bay. They cannot afford to lose this football game knowing that Detroit and Green Bay are playing this week. One of them is going to win and widen the gap against the Vikings here. This is a real crucial game, if you will, for Minnesota. I think Philadelphia still feels they can control their destiny in the NFC East. All they have to do is take care of Dallas when they hook up with the Dallas Cowboys. But I do like that factor with Mike Zimmer here trailing the two guys up on top of him in the league, and I love this non-division home favorite role that he's in. Give respect to Philadelphia. They've been outstanding with Doug Peterson. In non-division games themselves, when he's an underdog, he's won 11 of the 17 straight up, lost the money only 4 times. So, this is really, in truth, for all intents and purposes, a playoff-like atmosphere football game. It's probably the best matchup on the card this weekend in the National Football League, but I can't get past Mike Zimmer in this situation.
Yeah, this is also a spot that I've done pretty well, dating back to the Eagles Super Bowl run when the Eagles were on the road, and they are 11-4 against the spread. Their last 15 as a dog. They beat fellow NFC North Green Bay on the road, of course, a few weeks ago. first of 3 straight road games for the Eagles. After this, they got the Cowboys. So they do have that Cowboy game next week, which you could look at. Maybe there's just a look ahead situation. Who knows? But then a couple weeks after that, they got to go to Buffalo, which is not going to be easy with that defense. So we'll see though if Kirk Cousins can get himself a victory against a winning football team. And the way that these two teams are right now with their records, this could be a game that decides who's in and who's not at the end of the year.
Unquestionably, this could be a real huge pivotal football game. So you're telling me that you're not enamored with those 9 wins in 32 tries by Kirk Cousins against winning teams?
No.
Okay, I understand.
See, that's why this is so tough, because it's Mike Zimmer versus Kirk Cousins. So what's going to win out, the good of Mike Zimmer or the bad of Kirk Cousins? At least the good thing for Kirk Cousins is you got the Eagles secondary is banged up. So that I know Thielen's ill right now. And that's usually when somebody's ill on Thursday, they're okay by Sunday. But that's got to be a game where you would think the Vikings are going to do an awful lot of throwing the football like they did last week.
I'm going to come to Kirk Cousins' defense here, and believe me, I'm not a Kirk Cousins fan by any means, way, shape, or form. Okay, but I will say this week about him. He's much better aligned with Mike Zimmer than he was with the Washington Redskins.
Sure.
Okay, and number 2, when he was with the Washington Redskins, he went up against Philadelphia 8 times. He beat them 5 out of the 8 times, 6-2 to the spread. So he knows this football team pretty well from playing against them in that NFC East division. So this will not be unfamiliar territory for Kirk Cousins this Sunday.
And let's remember, too, the Vikings avenged the 2017 championship game loss last year when they beat Philadelphia in 2018.
Yes, they did. So it's revenge for the Eagles, yes.
Yeah, now it's revenge for the Eagles time. All right, let's go to a game that we agree on. Seattle and Cleveland. Seattle's a 1.5 favorite over Cleveland. And, boy, after the way Cleveland played on Monday night, wow, I don't know what to expect from this team. I just don't. I don't know what the situation is for Seattle. When you got a team like Cleveland that can't figure things out from week to week, and you got a Seattle team that is just kind of, they don't have that if it's sort of like taking a look at, a Wall Street line. It's up and down with Cleveland every week. Seattle is kind of straightforward, and maybe even straight but rising. They're just getting slowly better since the beginning of the season. And they've got a better, more experienced head coach. They have a better, more experienced quarterback. I don't have to worry about the line here. Seattle's 2-0 straight up and against the spread on the road. Cleveland's 0-2 straight up and against the spread at home. So we both agree on Seattle.
We do, and for the most part, once again, I'm from Cleveland, and I understand what's going on with this football program here. And I will say this coming into the game, although I'm going to be with you on Seattle in the contest. You are never as bad as you look in your worst loss, and you're never as good as you look in your best victory. And I said that about Cleveland after game 1 when that loss to Tennessee was that bad. Now I'm saying it again this week because that loss, there couldn't have been a worse loss in a primetime game than Cleveland suffered last week. Baker Mayfield had a quarterback rating of 13.4 in the football game. 13.4. Russell Wilson leads the NFL in passer rating this football season here. He hasn't thrown a pick yet this year. And when I'm bringing out the 13.4 on Baker Mayfield is this. I had read this, and this is pretty astounding, that if a quarterback took every snap in the National Football League game and did nothing but throw the ball into the ground every play, every snap he took, he would have a 35 quarterback rating. Okay. So somehow Baker Mayfield was 13.4. Now, obviously, that's because of the picks and the sacks and everything and so forth that goes with that. But the bottom line here is this. The Cleveland Browns have got to, and absolutely have got to, start putting the ball into the hands of the best player on this football team, and that's Nick Chubb. He's arguably maybe the best running back in the National Football League, but we're not ever going to know it under Freddie Kitchens, because Freddie Kitchens is enamored with OBJ and Jarvis Landry and getting the ball into their hands. The other teams know it. The other teams defense it. Baker Mayfield stands no chance, knowing that he's dropping back and he's looking for one of those 2 wide receivers. In the meantime, What does Bradley Chubb do? Oh, he runs off, he breaks a run for 20, 30, 40 yards twice a game, and he touches the ball maybe 8 other times. But other than that, it's that same offensive concept. Get the ball out to OBJ, get the ball out to Jarvis Landry. That has got to change in Cleveland. They're going to have Kareem Hunt coming back in the second half of the season. They will have in Chubb and Hunt the best running attack combo in the National Football League. And if Freddie Kitchens doesn't take advantage of that, it should be adios, Freddie. It's been nice knowing you.
Yeah, if the season were to end today, there's just no way he could return as head coach. So he's got time. This is something that they had to believe was going to take some time because this is still a young team, but they've got to be more consistent by the end of the season. Even if they don't make the playoffs and they're 8-8, as long as they show more consistency by the end of the season and they look like they're they resemble a professional football team, because that's what they just don't resemble. That what they look like is a very poorly coached football team. That's what they look like.
Well, you know why they're a very poorly football team? Because they are a very poorly coached.
Yeah, so
that's the reason.
Yes.
My other concern here for if I'm Seattle, I got to be a little bit aware of the fact that Cleveland has got New England up on deck next week. If they lose this football game, they get New England next week. Their season is in the tank before they even reach the midway point of the season. This is a huge football game for the Cleveland Browns. They answered back after they lost to Tennessee. They could do the same thing because they do have the talent here. But from a handicap perspective, again, you've got the Thursday factor for Seattle, the Monday factor for Cleveland here. It doesn't bode well for the Browns.
And, yeah, it's another excellent point to bring up. The same thing we talked about the other way, Thursday to Monday. And the good news for Cleveland, though, is that their schedule, the last 7 games, once you do get past New England and so forth, you have that 7-game stretch where if they're playing good football, they actually should be able to win 6-7. So they can dig a little bit of a hole and come out of it with that schedule. But we'll see how big of a hole it is in the next week or two.
Well, the win here makes them 3-3, and suddenly they're okay because they're playing in a really weak division.
That's right.
All they have to get past is Baltimore. Yep. And again, they're in the same situation after the loss to Tennessee. Just win the football game, even the record up, and let's see what happens from that point forward. All the good prospects for Cleveland that way, but the handicap has to be Seattle.
All right, let's go to the Monday Night Football game in the NFC North, and this is a game that we're going to disagree on. Now, even though I put the Packers into my Super Bowl futures report for the first time this season, and that is because I know how good this team can be if they could play defense, because that's what Aaron Rodgers has lacked for years, is a good defense and a running game, and now he's got both. And I know they got a rookie head coach, but this kid comes from, I guess, good lineage, good coaching lineage, with Shanahan and McVay. I've been following his career for a while. I think the Atlanta Falcons and Dan Quinn. I think Dan Quinn fired himself the day that he hired the bozo from Washington, Sarkisian, instead of and let LaFleur go to be a quarterback coach with the Rams instead of hiring LaFleur and elevating his job title as the offensive coordinator with the Falcons. That's when Dan Quinn lost his job, because he'll be fired at the end of the season. There's no doubt about it in my mind. But anyway, getting back to this game, even though I've just pushed up Green Bay, I'm taking the Lions. And that's because they do have a little bit of time to prepare. There's that. Sour taste in their mouth before the bye, the tough loss. They have to win this football game if they have any chance of winning the NFC North for the first time ever. I've liked Detroit like you like San Francisco at the beginning of the year to make the playoffs. I like the Lions to make the playoffs in the beginning of the season. So I think that they can go out there and do it against a team that they've actually beaten. I'm not sure people realize this, but they have beaten the Green Bay Packers the last 2 seasons. So they're 4-0 straight up and against the spread against Green Bay over the last 2 seasons. I'm taking Detroit and the 4 in this football game.
Part of the reason I'm playing Green Bay in this game is just for what you just mentioned, Greg. Of those 4 losses, Aaron Rodgers wasn't there last year with those two of those losses last year. One of those losses was a 31-0 wax job that they took. Aaron Rodgers is at his absolute best when the Packers are playing with revenge in his career. He's 25-10 against the spread, and if that opponent is coming in off a spread win like Detroit is, He's 12-1-1 straight up, 11-2-1 to the number. Prime time football, Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay Packers. I think they're going to expose Detroit for being this team that looks to be a contender, that was always a pretender, that now suddenly looks to be a contender. I think the separation begins here with Green Bay on Monday night.
Yeah, we'll find out. You're right. That this is a big show me game for Detroit,
Yes, it
coming
is.
off a
It's a step
bye.
up.
There's no
Yeah,
excuse.
I call those step up games
Yep.
for teams that haven't been there in a long while. Now they're suddenly there. Now they have to step up and win a game against a team that's been there in their
And
place.
by the way, they have also made me look good cash wise because they're 3-0 against the spread as a dog this year with 2 outright wins, and they almost beat Kansas City a couple of weeks ago. All right, let's go to another game we agree upon, and that is going to be actually. Let's go to. I'm trying to see where I have here. I get my things out of order. I tell you what. Let's go to the game that we agree on. We're going to go back-to-back upsets, AFC North upsets. I mentioned that in the open of the show. So here's the game that we agree on that is my upset. Now, I'm not saying that you're picking the upset. I'm picking the upset. You're taking the points, and that is Cincinnati over Baltimore. I know I can't believe I'm taking the Bengals to win a football game, as bad as that team can be. But they just have this thing against the Ravens, as you know, over the last few years, dating back to them knocking them out of the playoffs a couple of years ago in the final game of the season. They've beaten Baltimore 2 out of 3, covered 3 straight. I just think that when that happens in a division, then until you can break the hex, I'm going to kind of lean towards that team. Cincinnati, if you take their nemesis team out, Pittsburgh, they've done well on the road so far this year. Baltimore is one banged-up defensive football team. Jefferson's out for the year. They're one of their top corners never made it to the season, Tavon Young. Jimmy Smith has been banged up all year and hasn't practiced this week. Let's not forget Zadarius Smith is making the Packers look awfully good this season. They couldn't afford to keep him. They couldn't afford to keep C.J. Mosley, who looked great week 1 with the Jets before his injury. There's your reason why the Ravens' defense isn't playing as well as we thought that they would, because they just happen to be the Baltimore Ravens. So I think they're vulnerable in this game. Lamar Jackson, and remember, we talked about this a few weeks ago, I'm not sold on Lamar Jackson as a passer. They've got to go back to running the football if they want to be successful with Lamar Jackson. Not sure if they're going to wake up and realize that this week. I just have a feeling, like you, it's going to be closer than the spread. I'll go ahead and say outright upset.
Well, I wouldn't disagree because I do like Cincinnati with you in this football game. And I will say this. This is the best opportune time for dogs, double-digit underdogs, in Week 6 of the National Football League season. They're 41-15 against the spread in this particular role.
Wow.
16-3 against a 750 or less opponent. That all favors the Cincinnati Bengals in this contest here. They're also 0-5 for the first time going all the way back to, I think it's 2008. So they've gotten off to this really ragged start, to say the least. But the Baltimore Ravens are unraveling like a cheap suit themselves after that good start they had. Their defense is being exposed, and as you mentioned here, they're banged up with injuries here. This is not the place to be laying double digits with the Baltimore Raven team against anybody, especially a division rival. I'm on Cincinnati with the points in this game with you.
Yeah, and the Ravens, their one game breaker receiver, the kid, the rookie Marquise Brown, is dealing with an ankle injury. He hasn't even practiced this week. I get the feeling he'll play because he's kind of played with the injury already. But if he doesn't play, that's a big loss.
Do you know why they call him Hollywood Brown, by the way?
You know, I remember that. No, remind me.
I do because he happens to be from down here
Hollywood,
in Hollywood,
Florida.
That's exactly what
go.
it is.
Okay. All right. Now let's get to your upset. So this is where we're going to disagree. Pittsburgh and the Chargers. Now, I get all of the Pittsburgh, Tomlin, and how many games they've covered. 13-1 ATS last 14 as a dog versus winning teams. By the way, the Chargers a winning team?
No, they're not a winning team.
They're 2-3, right?
They're 2-3 for the 4th time in the last 5 years.
Wow.
And in those years when they were 2-3 in 4 of the last 5 years, they never made the playoffs in any of those 4 years.
Really?
By the way. Yeah, so they're in that same mode here right now going into
And
this
they're
game.
a banged up team. I mean, Pouncey now, they're starting centers out for the year. They got injuries left and right. Look, if there's and I've talked repeatedly how many times I go against the Chargers when they're at home because they have no home, and they're usually a favorite like this, like 6.5. If Rudolph was playing, I'd be all over the Steelers, but I just can't go with a with a basically a rookie third string quarterback from Sanford. I can't do it. I mean, I draw the line there. I draw the line. So you go ahead, take the Steelers. I need to see Devlin Hodges beat me on Sunday. And if that happens, then boy, Anthony Lynn might be in trouble soon.
Let me say this. I'm going to say this and see if you can follow me on this. Caw, caw, caw. That is Devlin Hodges. He is a world champion duck caller, and that's his nickname, Duck Hodges.
Duck.
He comes Duck Hodges, and because he's a world champion duck caller.
Okay.
Okay, and you can't go with him because he quarterbacked at Sanford. Well, how about the fact that he won the Walter Payton Award at Sanford? That's the same thing as winning the Heisman
That's
Trophy
true.
for FCS
That's
teams.
true.
14,500 passing yards, 111 touchdowns. They've taken to him like white on rice in Pittsburgh here. This kid is really, really being well received. I want him behind center more than I want Mason Rudolph this week.
Wow.
And the main reason being, okay, it's one of these philosophies again. You play the backup quarterback when the team rallies around you in his first start. And I believe Pittsburgh will do that because he's that well liked. Is Hodges coming into this football game here? The other side of the equation is, as you just mentioned here, here we go, San Diego. I bid for that again. The L.A. Chargers, okay, are really struggling. No home field advantage, as you mentioned here. That 25,000 soccer stadium where nobody ever shows up. You know, they're busy eating sushi instead. And you look at the bad number that they bring into the game. They're just 3-17 to the spread in their fourth home game of the season. I got to look at Pittsburgh in this contest here. I think they're going to be as loose as a goose can be, or as loose as a duck can be, if I can use that phrase. I'm going to play them plus the points and look for the Chargers' woes to continue, especially a banged-up Charger football team.
Yeah, I think if Pittsburgh wins this game, though, they're going to win it with the Chargers doing something stupid offensively. The Steelers get some turnovers, that kind of thing. And maybe Hodges is going to be one of those diamond in the roughs. Who knows? Anything is possible in sports. Chargers 0-4-1 against the spread their last 5 at home, including 0-2-1 this year, all depending on whether or not you did have 6 in the overtime win that they were maybe a little bit lucky to actually even cover that game because it was an overtime touchdown. And by the way, week 6, college football. Are you with me here? Week 6 college football. Is something coming up on a trend? Anything?
For week 6 in college football?
Yeah, game 6,
Yeah,
not week 6. Game 6.
I'll tell you exactly what it is. It's called Fat Cats.
No, that's not what I was thinking about. But go ahead and give me something for what you got.
Well, Fat Cats are one of the best handicapping angles in all of college football, and basically what it is a team that opens up 5-0 to begin the football season. When they go favored in week number 6, they are Fat Cats. They're reading all about how undefeated they are, how good they are, yada yada yada, and these teams choke like dogs.
Really?
Watch and see. There are 12 of them. 12 Fat Cats going out this week in college football. We'll add up the scoreboard, and I'll tell you what happened next week. And see, and I'll tell you this, that not half of them will get there to the money this week.
All right. Well, hopefully I've got a couple that will wind up coming through. I do have one against. I do have Texas against Oklahoma.
That's against a Fat Cat, Oklahoma.
But I do have 2 on the other side. I have Wake and I have Minnesota, and I do that because I just think Wake is I actually think they're not getting any respect with that line, to tell you the truth. I think I've liked Wake for the past year and a half. I really like Clausen. I like the quarterback. I like the football team. They're better than Louisville. I could see your point in that situation, though. And then I like Minnesota because I also predicted that they would be in the Big Ten championship game before the season began, and they're starting to light things up on offense. They got 2 great receivers, and Nebraska's a complete mess. But I like what you're saying. I just hope that the 2 games, Minnesota and Wake Forest, are 2 of the games that actually win. All the others can lose.
Just hope you're cat free in those two
Yeah,
football games.
absolutely. But the game 6 in college football, all right? And
Lay it
this
on.
is from Playbook Magazine. You might have heard about this magazine.
I think I've heard
You
about it.
might have
Yes.
heard about it. Vanderbilt has lost 18 consecutive years in game 6.
That's pretty good number.
18 lost, not spread. Lost. And
There's
and they're a 14-point favorite against UNLV on Saturday. I had to go back to see if they were playing like Alabama, Georgia every year, week 6. So I did go back to 2009. Now, there were a couple of games they were like a 2-point favorite or they were a favorite. But there was a
Right.
game where they were a favorite against Army in 2009 when Army, this is pre-Monken, when Army was a 5-win team and they were like a 10-point 10-point favorite and they lost to Army. So they lose 18 straight years, game 6 of the season.
I'm going to throw two other salty stats at you, which are out of the same vernacular.
Okay.
On the college football card this week. Number one, there happens to be the team that is nipping at their heels. By the way, is the Washington Huskies. In their week 7 of the football season, they've lost 13 times in a row to the spread, and they've only won one game. They're 1-12 straight up and 0-13 to the spread. The Washington Huskies. They do not perform well at all.
Is that next week?
This particular week.
Oh, it's this week. Good.
Yes, it is.
Because I got Arizona.
There you go. And the other stat I'm going to throw at you, this will win you a bar bet. Okay.
Okay.
Tell me the name of a team that has been an underdog 29 years in a row against their opponent they're playing this week. And this week, they're an 18-point favorite.
The team that's the 18-point favorite has lost 29 straight?
No, they've been the underdog 29 straight years.
And they're an 18-point dog again.
Now they're an 18-point favorite.
Yeah, so they've lost 29 straight to this opponent. And the opponent they're playing this week that they've lost 29 straight games, they're an 18-point favorite.
Not that they haven't lost. They have been the underdog in this series 29 times in a row. Now they're changing roles and going to a favorite of 18 points in this game.
All right. I know a very smaller one, which was Iowa State, but that's much smaller. Because I only go back 7 years because I know Iowa State was they were a dog against West Virginia for 7 straight years, and now they're a 10-point favorite, but that's much smaller. So, wow. That would have to be a team. That would have to be is it a Power 5 or Group of 5?
It's a Group of 5 matchup.
It's a Group of 5.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's a Power 5 matchup. A Power 5 matchup.
5. Shoot. 18. Go ahead and hit me.
The Duke Blue Devils favored over Georgia Tech.
Really?
Georgia Tech's been favored 29 years in a row against Duke.
And Duke has actually beaten Georgia Tech. How many? I think they've covered 5 straight and won 4 out of 5, I think, against Georgia Tech. Yeah, I think that's what it is. 4-1 straight up, 5-0 against the spread last 5.
Because they were dogs in those 5 games.
Yes, correct.
Exactly. Now they're going to
Now they're a big favorite, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I actually that's why, like in the Iowa State game, whenever I see that, I just completely stay away from that team, the team that becomes the favorite. It's sort of like the Ball State Eastern Michigan matchup. Again, a much smaller thing, but Eastern Michigan has dominated the series the last few years, killed them, and Ball State was a 2-point favorite to begin the week. And I liked Ball State, but I was like, they're a favorite. They get killed by this team. And I like Chris Creighton in Eastern Michigan. I like what he's done there. But then the line changed, and that made me happy. As soon as the line changed to Eastern Michigan favored by 1.5, I went, okay, I feel better. I'll take Ball State. So.
Well, here, and I'll tell you, we'll close out on this note here in that Duke-Georgia Tech football game. We call those plays dia. That's dominating dog in action, doing it again. And it's simply a team that has dominated their other opponent in as far as the favoritism goes, and not either there's a favoritism or winning in the series straight up, and now suddenly they're the underdog in the football game.
Okay.
Dia, adios, Duke. That's what that.
Dia, adios, Duke. All right.
There
And
you
Duke
go.
hasn't been a very good home favorite anyway.
Not
Oh,
reliable.
the one game I did forget quickly was the New Orleans Jacksonville game. And New Orleans, I really like him a lot, and I know you do too. We talked about Bridgewater as an excellent spread quarterback. He continues to win. They're just a better team than Jacksonville. I'm surprised Jacksonville is a 1.5-point favorite in this game.
I'm a little bit too, just given the fact if you put tape over the names of these two teams, you'd be looking at a winning team in New Orleans that has held their last two opponents to season low yards against a losing team in Jacksonville that just allowed a season high yard. The losing team favored to the winning team, the winning team with the better defense, hitting on all cylinders right now. I think the wrong team is favored in this football game.
First time Jacksonville's been favored this year. So
Yep.
how about that? And by the way, Doug Maroney's 0-7 against the spread all time as a favorite after he was in a dog role, which basically tells you when you're a dog and maybe you've impressed everybody and now you're the favorite the next week, you don't live up to it. So that's the way I look at it. Dia Duke. Thanks a lot, Mark. Appreciate it. Everything going great at covers.com, right?
Everything's going great. We've got all of our college football plays loaded right now as we speak. We'll be putting up the NFL ticket for Sunday. Check it out online at covers.com.